I think the best way to talk a little bit about the issues that will be up this year is to look at it from a standpoint of themes that will be in the General Assembly this year. There's about six of them. First of all, the number one will be COVID-19. You know, everything we talk about now revolves around the pandemic and what's going on with COVID. Uh, Certainly, the issue now everyone is concerned about is the vaccine rollout and how that will take place and will it run smooth. And I know this administration is paying very close attention to that, trying to do all they can to make sure that happens. But from a legislative standpoint, the first issue that COVID is causing is that they have basically closed down the Capitol building and the Cordell Hull building with a few exceptions, closed it down to the public. So it makes it very difficult for those of us who represent you to be up there on a daily basis like we've always been able to be in the past and have those face-to-face conversations. And so that will be interesting as to how we deal with that. But what will be important is for you, we would hope that you all pay attention to the legislative alerts. Be ready kind of at a moment's notice to have that conversation with your elected officials on issues that are important to Farm Bureau. But the first issue that certainly that the legislature will be paying close attention to are just any and all effects of COVID. That leads me to number two, because one of the major effects COVID had been to our education system. And I would say that's kind of the second theme to watch. Right now, they're in a special session regarding education. Governor Lee called this session, and he proposed four different bills related to learning loss, funding accountability, literacy, and teacher pay. And right now, the Senate has completed their work. The House still has some work to do on one of the bills in Finance Committee, and they will be coming back tomorrow, hopefully to finish their work. That's at least their plan during this special session. But we believe these efforts are real important. Farm Bureau put out a public statement and a statement to the General Assembly that this organization supported what Governor Lee was trying to do, and it was based on Farm Bureau policy in an effort to try to fix the effects the pandemic's had on our education system. A couple of items I'll mention as priority issues related to education is number one, there will be a bill brought that would place 4-H programs in the same light as FFA programs and other type of extracurricular activities in school. So if a 4-H member has a 4-H event outside of school during the school hours, it would be an excused event. We know there have been some issues with livestock shows and some other 4-H events, depending on the county. And hopefully this will bring some consistency statewide in that. Next time I would mention related to education is the Tennessee State Fair. And we do believe that the State Fair is an educational program for all Tennesseans to kind of come together and learn more about agriculture and other industry within the state. And it's just kind of within our fabric. This organization has worked hard to try to keep a state fair in Tennessee. And we are trying to look for ways to potentially change venues from where it's been in the past. And there may be some changes needed in the law to facilitate that, as well as funding, but be paying attention to that issue as well. Number three, I want to talk about the budget. As you know, the pandemic had pretty dramatic effects on business across the state, and as a result had an effect on sales tax revenue. And so far, the state of Tennessee, from a budgeting standpoint, is in decent shape. There's been a lot of federal money come down for different programs. And then also our revenues have stayed at a relatively steady level. If you recall, the legislature left last year with no improvements in the budget. So they cut a little over $1 billion from Governor Lee's proposed budget. They kept it like it was, and we have maintained revenues both on the state and local level, and mainly because the legislature allowed for sales tax on internet sales, and that was based on the Wayfair decision that came out of the Supreme Court. So the timing was good from that standpoint, but we will be watching real close the budget and any after effects of the pandemic once this is over, and which they're expecting to happen, and make sure that the agriculture programs such as ag enhancement are stay the same and are not affected by any downturns in revenues. Number four is broadband, and if the pandemic highlighted anything, it's that rural areas need broadband. We need that expansion and that infrastructure build out relative to broadband. And we're hopeful that Governor Lee will place more funds in this year's budget for infrastructure improvements and expansion across the state relative to broadband. And the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations released a report recently where they had studied the 2017 law that allowed for electric cooperatives uh, to provide internet and video services within their footprint. And one of the recommendations they made, among many, was that electric cooperatives and municipalities be allowed to expand outside their footprint. And that's something that will be interesting to see if that's taken up this session. Certainly, parts of that are policy of this organization supports. There are some entities like telephone cooperatives that we do want to protect across the state. So we will be watching that closely and hope that you all will too as we go throughout the session. Number 5 is just government power and regulations. And one of the issues that we want to take up this year as a priority issue is to ensure that local boards of health cannot regulate agriculture. And in a couple of counties in West Tennessee where there are new poultry operations needing to locate to feed the new Tyson facility in Gibson County, as well as the expanded facility in Union City. These counties, there are some community groups trying to use the local boards of health to regulate and more or less keep poultry operations out of their county based on public health and safety. And we do not believe that there is a public health and safety issue there. And if they can regulate for poultry or hog operations, then they would be able to regulate through other types of agriculture. And we believe that needs to be clarified in the law that power does not exist with local boards of health, people who are not elected by the citizens of the county. And the last one I would mention, number 6, is just what's old is new. Last year, you remember the legislature had to leave, and we had several priority issues that had to fall to the side because the legislature only took up issues that were critical to the budget and COVID-19 before they adjourned for the year. One of those being to increase the acreage cap that is allowed in the Greenbelt. If you recall, today only 1,500 acres can only be enrolled into Greenbelt within a county. Your policy supports an increase in that cap. And then also, this organization has tried to streamline the agricultural sales tax exemptions in the code. And today it's very piecemeal. It doesn't work both for businesses and for farmers. And we believe that statute can be streamlined and reformed in a way that'd be easier on everyone. It would provide further tax treatment in that regard, and certainly an issue we would like to see take place again this year.